Peace, brothers and sisters in TV land. My name is Isaac Welcome, and some of you would know me as Eric Williams Welcome, so as not to get mixed up. Now, this evening, we are here to let you know a little bit of what has been going on in the Reparations Committee, and at the same time to let you know that we are going to be having certain things coming up next Sunday on the quarantine and the following Sunday in Amsterdam. Now, to my left is Sister Esther Gittings, and to the far left is Brother Walter George, and to my right is Brother Elton McQuaid. Now, we are all from the Reparations Committee in Georgetown, the Guyana Reparations Committee, and I am the chair of the Berbice Reparation Committee. So today, I would like you to call a friend and tell them that the Reparation Committee is on. There are many people who will tell you, I don't watch TV. So please tell them to watch the TV now, and they will get some information as to what has been happening, why it is happening, and what would be happening in the next 2 weeks. So now I'm going to pass you on to Brother Elton McQuaid, and he will give you his part.
Good evening, viewers from within the New Amsterdam quarantine region. I'm Elton McRae, AGDA's representative to the Reparations Committee. Now, at the Reparations Committee, we have been formulating a number of things. What we have recognized is that reparations is a must for African people within the Caribbean and the wider African diaspora. Now, some people want to say you're begging for something which you didn't work for. No, it is not we are begging, we are demanding payments for crimes that were committed, injustices which were committed against our people. So I will roll back a bit. Now, imagine sometime around 1441, the Europeans first visited the west coast of Africa, and they took some people back to Europe and made them work for free, and that is when this Atlantic slave trade began. Right now, people there, the Africans were going about their business in their normal way, like other people, farming, enjoying themselves, getting married, getting children, and so on. But then up come these people from Europe and started an enterprise which today can be classified as the most economic activity the Europeans have ever gotten into, because the profits they have made from enslaving Africans, capturing them, that is kidnapping people, bringing them across the Atlantic Ocean to the Caribbean, South America, North America, and making them work for free. They worked for free, enslaved them, and these people then were able to build their nations. That is, Europe was built on the backs of Africans. America was built on the backs of Africans. And Brazil, all those places, Guyana was built on the backs of Africans. Most of the infrastructure we enjoy today in Guyana were built by our foreparents. The seawalls, the roads, the canals, they were all built, the wharfs were all built with free labor. And we have accepted it today that if one works, he must get paid. So we are saying that the efforts of our foreparents must be paid for, because when you look at what it has done for Europe, Europe has gone leaps and bounds ahead of the world, all because of what they did to our foreparents, right? So for that we must be paid. This enslavement was declared a crime against humanity, and crimes against humanity has no statute of limitation. So if it happened 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 100 years ago, we can still bring it to the courts according to the legal system that we enjoy today. So we need to get reparations. I will continue my discourse, but let's us introduce each other. The brother, welcome. Yes, Sister Esther or Brother George.
Okay. All right. Good day, Berbice, once again to you. I am Walter George, and I am a representative from the Pan-African Guyana branch movement. And today I would bring to you basically a brief background how the Guyana Reparation movement was established, and in essence coming from the CARICOM end. In July 2013, at the 34th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Trinidad, Guyana, the heads of state unanimously agreed at that meeting to engage United Kingdom and Holland on the issue of reparation for native genocide and slavery. Also at that meeting, the heads also established a national reparation movement in each of the 50 member states, and Guyana, as you're aware, is a member of CARICOM. In addition to that, our heads of state at CARICOM level also established a CARICOM Reparations Commission. That commission is comprised of all the chairs of each member state. That comprise of that commission. And that commission is chaired by our foremost scholar in African history and Caribbean history and reparation. He is Dr. Hilary Beckles. And as time goes on, you will be able to hear more of Dr. Hilary Beckles. He has done a lot of work on the history of the Caribbean, especially as regards to reparation. Also, coming out of that heads of government meeting, in September 2013, the CARICOM movement set up what you would call a prime ministerial subcommittee which would deal with the issue of reparation. In essence, this body would be able to help at the CARICOM level to spearhead the movement. Now, that movement is chaired by His Excellency Prime Minister Dr. Fondel Strout of Barbados. And that subcommittee comprised of Guyana, Haiti, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Suriname. In January 2014, Dr. Randolph Gonzalez was named chairman of the CARICOM movement, and he was designated to lead CARICOM in the effort to engage the Europeans through to pursue reparation. Coming out also from the 2013 heads of government meeting, the Reparations Commission at the CARICOM level was tasked, or the subcommittee at the CARICOM level was tasked to dispatch a letter of demand and that would be the first phase in engaging Europe in the discourse of reparation. Also, the CARICOM had engaged the English law firm Lidl and Company that will guide CARICOM through the process. Now, if this diplomatic process fail, then Europe will be faced basically with, in essence, the CARICOM will engage the international court, which basically would Europe will face a lawsuit. That's if the diplomatic dialogue fail. Now, coming out of that, at the 35th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting, that's in 2014, the CARICOM Heads of Government agreed to dispatch the draft letter of complaint under the cover of a letter coming out to the chair of the Prime Minister's Subcommittee on Reparation, which was chaired by the President of Barbados, the Prime Minister, of Barbados, Dr. Fondelstruth, to, in essence, engage in Europe to discourse with the Caribbean, or discourse with CARICOM, requesting them to meet with us at a conference so that we could be able to engage on the matter of reparation. That letter, as I say, was sent out, coming out from the 35th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting. And to this date, the Netherlands, or which some person would know as the Dutch Holland, they reply, and they have replied in the formative, and in essence willing to engage the CARICOM in this diplomatic discussion. However, to the date, we didn't have no other reply from the other European country, with the exception of England, which we can call it the United Kingdom. They reply in which we would consider in a matter which require a bit more legal interpretation of the letter. It wasn't plain. In essence, it wasn't plain as the Dutch reply, as in essence engaging us into a mutual discussion. Their own was a bit more, more we would say brazen, pervasive, need more clarity. However, at the 34th Heads of Government meeting, it was mandated that all heads of states form in their country reparations committee, and Guyana was no exception. And our former president at that time was Donald Ramotar, former President Donald Ramotar. He set up the Guyana Reparations Committee around, it was October 2013, and named Brother Eric Phillips the chair of the movement. Currently, the movement meet in Georgetown at the African Museum, which is in Berima Street in Bel Air Park. And the Reparations Committee meet once a week, every Thursday from 5:30. So persons who, and all are invited, so persons who are interested can, make an effort to come to the meeting whenever the time is available. Thursday from 5:30, once a week. In addition, it was mandated that each heads of state more or less spearhead the committee through their Ministry of Culture, and in some cases, for some countries, it would be Department of Culture, who will basically manage and fund the committee. In addition, with respect to issues engaged in England, all the 50 member states, they collectively fund that process. Coming out also from the 34th Heads of Government meeting in 2013, the CARICOM Reparations Commission was tasked in setting up a Caribbean reparatory justice program, and that program was established March 2014. And in March 2014 also, Prime Minister Dr. Randolph Gonzalez of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, he was given the chair of the CARICOM, Reparation, the chair of the CARICOM Heads of Government. In essence, he chaired CARICOM and he was mandated and tasked to spearhead the reparation movement. And as such, he announced the Caribbean Reparatory Justice Program. This program was basically set up on the basis to discuss reparation throughout the entire Caribbean, which included Guyana. And this reparatory justice program formed as a strategic and operational plan to prepare CARICOM Reparations Commission in setting up a 10-point plan program. And this 10-point plan program basically is to address the issues that the CARICOM Reparations Commission is claiming reparatory justice for. And this program briefly dealing with repatriation, and as you know, long the Rastafari movement within the Caribbean has long been talking about repatriation back to the motherland, right? In addition, as the program deal with indigenous people development program, and persons would know who reading the newspaper, looking at current affairs, would currently see that there's a lot of development program going on for indigenous people. And that is based on the work that was completed that you would hear in the subsequent discussion that they have already done with regards to their decade and their year. In addition, the 10-point plan seeks to develop culture programs for persons who had suffered the slavery and native genocide. It also seeks to deal with public health crisis, and as you know, we have public health crisis, and you look in your country on a daily basis and you'd see high rate of suicide. You look at the we would call the social engineer barbaric relation that people engage each other with, which coming out to the enslavement period, which we talk about beating, cruelty, and that system or those in essence bad behavior, barbaric behavior is an institutionalized behavior which passed down from generation to generation. It also deals with raising consciousness of indigenous people and African people too. The 10-point program deal with that, raising consciousness. In some person call it rebuilding back your memory, your consciousness, where you came from, knowing yourself, you know. It deal with psychological rehabilitation, you know. It talk about technology transfer, you know. When you remove somebody from the home, the knowledge they would have probably gained and so on from the home, from the generation, all the history and knowledge that would have transferred from their foreparents to their children, by removing somebody, you remove the knowledge base, hence you're out of technology. And as you see today, the Europe and the Asian countries are way ahead of Africa in terms of technology. So one of the things is we looking at technology transfer. And finally, the 10-point plan look at debt cancellation. Debt cancellation, as you know, in the Caribbean, you know, currently all the Caribbean countries are faced with high debt. High debt, and in essence, the economic crisis that is imposed on them based on the modern economic trade that Europe, Asia engage with the Caribbean has put us in a system whereby to have, in essence, we don't have enough wealth based on the degradation. We can't generate enough wealth to cause our, you know, our GDP to be of such that we could see big economic growth. So every time when we need money to engage in development and activity, we got to go and borrow. So hence our debt is very high. So the 10-point plan look at dealing with cancellation of your debt. And the European countries that CARICOM targeting is namely, as I indicated to you, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, or some person would call the Dutch, Holland. We're looking at also France, Spain, Portugal, Sweden, Norway, Denmark. All these countries, in essence, the whole of Europe was in this trade, with the exception, I think, of Russia. All the other European country was in this trade. And, you know, and this is a trade that done at the highest level, at the political, religious, and the social level of each of these countries. So it's a serious business. In addition to that, each CARICOM Reparation Committee is measured by the terms of reference, which each CARICOM country use to develop their strategy. And just to briefly go through the terms of reference, in a brief manner, look at each CARICOM Reparation Committee has to develop a national strategy to pursue reparation. They also need to undertake a historical data, meaning they need to look at the history and see and acquire information as to, you know, the past atrocity. Look at also developing national public education campaign, as this one, the Berbice Outreach, is such one which we are engaging in. We also need to develop civic connection with the reparation issue, and you would see that as time go on, as we engage you, Berbice, and among other things. CARICOM is doing all of this on the basis that UN Convention has set up to eliminate racial discrimination in 1969. they set up this convention so that country could be able to deal with racial discrimination. And so CARICOM leaders take up this opportunity to develop a forum for negotiation, and that speak to our letter of complaint, or which we call a letter of demand, which will be able to set that process up, because we need to look at the matter because an injustice has occurred. One of the things we also want to do is tie the reparation movement with the international decade. And as you know, who abreast with international current affairs, as UN has proclaimed 2015 to 2024 as the international decade for the people of African descent, with the theme that people of African descent, recognition, justice, and development. And at the center of this initiative, it would be promoting and protecting African human rights, to improving their well-being, this African well-being, recognition of their culture, looking at history and the contributions to society, and setting up a program of activities that will be implemented by all member states within the convention. So in essence, what would be unfolding, that each member state in United Nations, which Guyana is part of, have to set up a program of activities for African people. And that's based on the convention, the UN convention that Guyana signed on to. And finally, to conclude, reparation is a struggle for slavery reparation. And it's fundamentally a business, basically. Fundamentally, reparation is about business. And it also serves as a counter-argument for the neo-colonial relation that the Europeans engage currently with the CARICOM. It is about economics. In essence, we'll be saying, for the 21st century, reparation will be our philosophy. And finally, it's about CARICOM survival. Hence, reparation is about our awakening in the 21st century. I'm going to hand you over to Sister Esther, who would continue the discourse.
Thank you, Brother Walter. Greetings to our viewers in Berbice, New Amsterdam. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here with the Guyana Reparations Committee this afternoon to bring our viewers up to date on some of the work that we've done and that we intend to do. First of all, for a bit of clarification on what my colleague, Brother Walter, just said on the formation of the Guyana Reparations Committee. As it was mandated, all the heads of government had to choose the chairs of each national committee. And as former President Donald Ramatara was Guyana's president at that time, he selected our chair, Brother Eric Phillips, who then looked amongst the prominent African organizations of Guyana and selected the other members of the committee after consultations were done with these groups, and they recommended who they would like to represent them on the national committee. So hence the chair of the committee was chosen by the president, and the rest of the committee members were selected and recommended by the African groups of Guyana. My colleague also talked about technology transfer within the 10-point plan that the CARICOM has decided to initiate. The reason for technology transfer is because, as we know, our ancestors, they invented a lot of things that we use today. But because they were under slavery, they were not able to own their own patents. So the masters, they took the patents and they were the ones who produced them and published them, and they hold the rights to them today. And after emancipation, they made it a point to make sure that no industries really of significance were developed in the Caribbean countries. In fact, they even passed a law where they said not even a nail must be produced in the Caribbean. So we see, there we go again. They got the rights to all the property rights, and they're making all of these money from those time to now. So in order for us to create an equal opportunity within economics, we must have technology transfer. Now, reparations is twofold. The most important part for me as a Rastafari is self-repair, because the other half is economic, about a demand for payment for work that was done forcibly by our ancestors, which the Europeans gained tremendously. If we are not in our African state of consciousness, we will not be in a position to fully utilize any form of economic funds that we achieve through reparations. So the most important factor for reparations is self-repair and awakening of the African man in the Caribbean, internationally, as my colleague said. Now, the Guyana Reparations Committee has done extensive research over the past 2 to 3 years in order to develop our terms of reference as mandated by the CARICOM Commission. As a result, we've developed and published, I have here with me today a booklet that will be soon distributed countrywide. Presently, we've given a copy to each member of parliament, because we intend to have a reparations claim in the form of a petition read in parliament in this sitting. So we have given this booklet, which has the entire story of Africans starting, showing that we were the first in creation, we were the first in a continent, we were the first in South America. It also highlighted the way Africans used to live before the Europeans came. It also showed what happened in the Holocaust, the Guyanese Holocaust. And we have, finally, within this booklet, the Guyana Reparations Committee claim. Because as some of us may know, that our ancestors in Guyana, they cleared 15,000 square miles with their hands manually. They built the entire city fence of Guyana, and at emancipation, they received no pay. They were set free with no monies, no food, no homes, nothing at all. And unto this day, Africans in Guyana have not been compensated for any of the work that we've done forcibly. Also, the Guyana Reparations Committee has recognized that Guyanese are in a very precarious position in Guyana, socially, culturally, and economically, most importantly, because of systems that being put in place before emancipation, post and pre-emancipation. We saw the colonial masters implementing many systems to make sure that we were oppressed. So as a result, the situation that African Guyanese are in today is not by chance, it's because things were deliberately implemented. So we've done a study and analysis called Crisis, and we've put this in a form of a letter to our members of parliament so that they can fully understand the situation that Afro-Guyanese are facing today. Now, some of us may know that our President, His Excellency David Arthur Granger, is mandated to be the next chair for the CARICOM Reparations Commission, where he will have to represent the Caribbean at the United Nations Forum. So he will be the spokesman for the Caribbean at the United Nations Forum on Reparations. Therefore, the Guyana Reparations Committee has been tasked to come into all the African villages, the African and historical villages, and initiate reparations groups in all of these villages in order that we may have more, what must I say, widespread involvement, and so that we will be in a better position to disseminate all the information that is being uncovered by the Guyana Reparations Committee. Also, that we could have an easy medium to share all of the information and the progress as the work of the CARICOM Reparations Committee progresses. Now, in May of this year, we had the CARICOM Reparations Youth Rally, which went into most or all of the prominent African villages in Guyana, starting in the Pomeroon and the entire Essequibo coast, also East and West Berbice, and Linden, and Georgetown, Demerara. Now, because of the response we received when we went into these villages, we realized that a lot of our African brothers and sisters are not in tune with even the history of their villages. They are at a loss to African affairs internationally. Most of them were not even aware that we are into the second year of the International Decade for people of African descent. So we have decided that we will have to do widespread outreach programs in order to bring our people up to date, so that we will be in a position to make proper projections for the International Decade as to how we would like to see our groups, our villages, our communities in the future for this 10 years and onwards. So now we're going back into all of those villages and forming village reparations groups. So look out for us in New Amsterdam. I know Brother Welcome will highlight his clusters that he will be working in a little later in the program. We will be initiating groups along the East Coast, Demerara, East Bank, Demerara, Linden, West Bank, Demerara, even in Essequibo on the coast, and in Pomeroon. So again, what I would like to say to my brothers and African brothers and sisters and well-wishers, we must look into ourselves and look to our elders in our communities, try to find out as much as possible as we can about the history of our villages so that we can pass it on to our youths. And we must look within ourselves and check balance with the ways of our ancestors in order to visualize how we have to develop our programs to take our villages forward and strengthened in that Afrocentric way. With this, I would like to pass you back to Brother Isaac. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Sister Esther. Brother Elton, you got anything else you want to say?
Yes, brother. It is that from what we have seen in our research at the Guyana Reparations Committee, what we have recognized is that the history which was taught in schools, I said was because presently it's not being, history is no longer in the school system, though we feel it should be now. History that was taught, there were many distortions, many untruths. And so people of African descent, for instance, were never told that their foreparents, when they came here, they were, many of them were skilled craftsmen. All we know is that they came to work. But if you look back into our history, you will understand that Guyana benefited a lot from the presence of Africans, because as I mentioned earlier, and sister and brother did also mention, the seawalls. We were able to control the seawalls, though many times we are told that the Dutch learned about reclamation from the sea by way of the Africans when the Moors were in Europe. So if you taught these people to do it, and then you come here and they may have been your supervisors, how can they claim it?
Well, to join in the discourse, Brother Elton, in fact, when they came to the continent to take people, the first batch of Africans that they captured, they didn't just capture anybody. They captured the rulers, the members of the cabinet, and all the skilled craftsmen are who they brought to the Caribbean, which is how, because they only left the weak, the very old, and the very lame, and the very young were who they left on the continent, which is how it was possible for them to sit down and divide up what we know as Africa today amongst themselves. So in fact, if you ask some of the Africans, they will tell you that the brains of Africa is in the Caribbean because they brought all the royalty, all the best, all the skilled craftsmen. And we know for a fact because we have our local hero, Kofi. We know he was an Akan ruler. His brother who went to Suriname, Kojo, because he didn't want to stay and fight. He went over there so that the culture could be preserved. And he's Kojo, he's royalty. Also, we know Nani from Jamaica, who helped in their liberation, is also royalty. And we could go down the whole long list to show.
So the whole thing is, even with the sugar, sugar came to, the Europeans learned of sugar from the Africans. So when they brought people, they did not choose any other poor people because they know they wanted to plant sugar. They brought skilled technicians because our people were processing sugar before the Europeans came to this part of the world. So they brought people who were skilled.
Also, right here in New Amsterdam, in Winkel, we have Winkel, which is the first African village free. They were not slaves. They were skilled craftsmen who had to be paid for their expertise.
And so these are the kind of things that we need to be taught, or so that our young people can have a sense of pride, because you tell, man, you people are slaves. They were not slaves, by the way. They were enslaved. They were forced into that condition. That's the first historical wrong that has been
And to
created.
prove that they were not slaves, they never accepted that state that was forced on them. They continuously rebelled. So they never accepted that slavery that was put on them. They always rebelled.
When you look, our books tell us of Wilberforce and Buxton and Clarkson. They hardly mention the name Kwame now. They hardly mention Kofi and the others who were constantly creating issues on the sugar estates. In fact, we made it so untenable for sugar to survive that many of the sugar plantations and the cotton plantations throughout the length and breadth of the coast were virtually given away post-emancipation because they were not functioning. That's why our people were able to survive, because they had places of refuge, right?
And to prove again that we never accepted slavery, because after 200 and something years of forced labor, at emancipation, we went right back and we started to buy lands from whatever meager earnings that we had to show that we still had an independent spirit. And in fact, we were the only people in those days who actually owned land in Guyana, because even the plantation farmers, they didn't own those plantations. They leased those plantations. So we were the first people who bought lands in Guyana and owned lands in Guyana to prove we did not accept that we were slaves.
But let me just say this to you. Talking about people who fought for emancipation, certain things are not properly put over. A lot of Equiano who was enslaved, got himself out of slavery, he also was fighting, and he did more fighting than all of them white people. And he came from Africa knowing 2 languages, and he learned a third one here. Right? So this is a man who had education and also he had knowledge. Now these chaps like Wilberforce and them, some of them were saying, let us stop the slave trade, not stop slavery. Stop the slave trade. In other words, if we got 50 slaves here now, we go keep these, but we ain't bringing more. And nobody must go back to that place and bring out anybody. This is what they were fighting for.
Anyhow.
Because the President of the United States of America, Abraham Lincoln, said, if I could keep these people, if I could keep the South and the North together without releasing these slaves, I will do it. But the South was saying, we can't lose them. These are the people who doing the work. And this is where they get the fight from.
Yeah.
But before we go too far down, I would like to let the people in Berbice know this. Sunday the 9th is going to be a meeting at Kildonan at 1 o'clock. That meeting is to form the Reparation Committee for the area. It would be a cluster of villages, and you do not have to be a member of any group. All you need is to be a part of that community, and you can come out and vote for who you want to represent you in that neighborhood. And I am hoping this is from
The cluster.
Cortland, Gibraltar to Noni Kildonan. So next Sunday we are going up there, and we are hoping that people will come out, because it is extremely important that people come out and choose the kind of persons they want to represent them. Because this is not a case where we would be putting people to represent you who cannot speak. You cannot afford to go there and choose a friend just because it's your friend and the friend wants to be in it. What we need to have is people with some knowledge, people with some education, people who know to speak and don't want to use big words and they don't know the meaning of the word that they're using and embarrassing you. Because our people will need to stand up in front of foreigners when they come into this country and represent the neighborhood. And we had trips out of the country already, about 4 now. And we will be having more. And if your representative cannot speak, there is hardly any chance that that representative would be representing us out of the country, or give him a chance to speak at any official forum, because we are not going there to be embarrassed. So, Brother Elton?
Yes, as the brother is saying, we will be coming to the communities to organize these committees. Why we want to do that is because we need to have reparations on within the homes of every African Guyanese group, right? Because reparation is not only for us in the committee, it's for everybody, and we want people to understand it's not about getting money to spend, as the sister said. It's about, most of it is about self-repair, your self-repair, understanding yourself and rationalizing why you must make a change, right, for a better future for yourself and your offspring. So this meeting that Brother Welcome is talking about for next Sunday and the following Sunday, we will be in...
The following Sunday we will be in New Amsterdam, at the New Amsterdam Prison Officers Sports Club at 1 o'clock.
Right. For these two meetings, we are hoping that we can get your full support so that we can discuss issues pertaining to yourselves, because reparations, as the sister said, some villagers do not even know their village history. And that's the part of the things we need to, for reparations. We need to know our history. Because when we get into our history, history is what will tell us. The sister mentioned our people bought the communities which we now call villages. These communities were bought, and we didn't buy them to make a village. When we bought those communities, they were cooperatives, business enterprise. If you check back, our cooperatives in Guyana preceded those of the Rochdale weavers. But yet the world knows about the Rochdale Beavers as the first co-op in the world. Victoria was formed before that co-op, and Victoria was a co-op, right?
And in fact, is the greatest economic feat that been done in Guyana on to this day, because our ancestors bought over 212 villages. Not villages they bought plantations from Seawall to Bagdam. That's what they bought.
On the East Coast, we're talking seawall to the
All
Conservancy.
true. All true.
True.
Okay.
And,
Right,
and
yes.
Sir Hilary Beckles, Professor Viri Shepherd, all the University of West Indies, who are some of our reparations champions, they have recognized that reparations is not all about the academia or the professionals or politicians. Reparations is mostly supported by the grassroots. And so one of the reasons for the initiation of the rally and these outreach and the formation of these reparations group is to get the grassroots involved, because if we are going to progress and do better and develop our people, we have to start from the first step, the first rung of the ladder. We can't start at the top. So we have to get a grassroots involved in this reparations movement. If the grassroots are not involved, the grassroots are the engine for the reparations movement. So we have to come down into the streets, into the villages and communities, so that we can get all of our people involved and supportive of the reparations movement, because the reparations movement is for all of us African descendants. And as my brother earlier highlighted, it was CARICOM and UN mandated for African slavery and Amerindian genocide.
Just,
Let me just say this. I picked on it a bit, but let me get it clear this last time. On the 9th of this month, Sunday the 9th, we are going up to Kildonan for a 1 o'clock meeting. We are asking all the brothers and sisters from Firish area straight on to Kildonan to come out and vote for who you want to represent you. The following Sunday, we will be at the New Amsterdam Prison Officers Sports Club, and that would be for East Kanji, West Kanji, and New Amsterdam. So when we are coming, we would be expecting to meet people who are willing to represent their community, and we would like, as I said about the people on the quarantine, people must not just choose people because I like them, choose people who could stand up and represent the community.
Also, Brother Welcome, not forgetting at the Coffee 250 annual State of African Affairs in Guyana, His Excellency President David Granger has tasked all African groups in Guyana to come together and put together a plan which will be implemented for the decade. And as he highlighted, the decade was 120 months. At the time when he gave the task to the African groups, we were at 100 months. Now we're into 90-something months. And so all African groups are tasked to come together to put together a national plan to be implemented for the decade and onward. And President Granger has highlighted 5 points that he is willing and ready to start supporting the African community in Guyana towards implementation, which is his favorite 5 E's: expiation, economics, equality, employment,
and education.
And education, the most important of all. And I think all the other components involve education, and economics is top of the line and everything. Because our local National Reparations Committee view is that reparations and social cohesion for us is economics, because we are not in a position right now to be socially cohesive, because we're like this right now. And if we're like this, bearing in mind that things were deliberately done to keep us here, then things must be deliberately done to create a kind of atmosphere that will help us to be socially cohesive. So again, my African brothers and sisters and well-wishers, sympathizers, remember to get together in your groups and start putting your ideas together with sustainable development in mind and plan your programs and your projects. Look for us. We'll be coming into the communities, and based on the 5 points again: expiation, which only means formal apology, education, economics, employment, equality.
Just to add, and I think I need to put some clarity for persons who would be in the challenge, because you get many persons like to use the word slave. And for Berbice people, remember, slave is a word created by the European people, and it come out from the Slavic people in, I think, was southeastern Europe. Now, this word,
Eastern.
yeah, basically the enslaver uses this word to define somebody who they working without pay. Now, in Africa, and there's something we need to recognize, in Africa, then when they started this barbaric slave camp whole action, the African man, in his reality, in his consciousness, he didn't had no word in his language for slavery. In essence, that did not exist. He see the European man as a man and doing business, and he engaged in trade with the European man, and Europe exploited that trade. Africa at the time of itself did not have that, did not practice that action, that word. So this just to bring some clarity.
Yes.
Once again, Berbice, thank you for looking at this program. Thank you for staying with us. Remember the dates and the venues and the times Brother Isaac Wells come publish for the meetings and elections in Berbice. Thank you for watching us. Make sure you educate yourself and get involved in the reparations movement, and look for us in your community.
Once again, thank you very much for
Thank you.
listening and keeping us within. We will be back, and good night.
Well, let me say for the last that I will be looking out for all of my friends and hope that all of my friends bring along another friend. And that friend could bring another friend. And at the end of the day, I think we are going to have quite a lovely gathering. I hope to see at least 40 to 50 of you at the meetings the next 2 Sundays. So, very good night to you all. Thank you very much for watching.